Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where we dissect everything that happens in the world of Formula One. Today, we're going to talk about one of the greatest teams in F1 history that's going through a tough phase, Mercedes. After dominating the championship for almost a decade, the team has been facing new challenges since the regulation changes in 2022. We're going to take a look at what went wrong, what they've been doing to correct their course, and how they're preparing for the future. So, sit tight and let's dive in. But before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our analyses and updates about the world of Formula One. Let's get into it. So guys, let's start from the beginning. Mercedes was the absolute queen of Formula One from 2014 to 2021, winning 8 consecutive constructors' titles. It was almost impossible to think of a race without seeing a silver car on the podium. But then came 2022 and things changed drastically with the new ground effect regulations. The 2023 Monaco GP marked a significant shift for Mercedes when they decided to abandon the zero side pods and follow a more conventional approach. The expectation was that this change would solve many of the problems the team was facing, but it didn't quite work out that way. They swapped one set of problems for another. Even with all these changes, Mercedes hasn't managed to return to the top. The difficulties with the new car continued, and they had to deal with new technical challenges to try and find the perfect balance. Now, you might be wondering, but what about McLaren, which also uses the Mercedes engine? How did they manage to turn things around? Don't worry, we'll get to that soon. Now, let's delve into the technical challenges Mercedes faced and the solutions they tried to implement. Since the introduction of the new ground effect regulations, Mercedes has had problems with bouncing and porpoising, those jumps we saw in the car when it picked up speed. These problems arose because the car was set to run very low, trying to maximize downforce. To try and fix this, Mercedes made several technical changes. They adjusted the car's floor and modified the front suspension to improve platform control. The goal was to allow the car to run low enough to generate the necessary downforce without the bouncing issues. Additionally, they introduced new components like a modified front wing and tweaks to the floor edges. But, as with any engineering solution, solving one problem usually creates new challenges. In Mercedes's case, while some old problems were solved, new challenges emerged. The team began to struggle with stability in slow corners, a critical point, especially for drivers like Lewis Hamilton, who have an incredible talent for braking late and still making the turn perfectly. So, despite all these changes, Mercedes still hasn't fully recovered its performance, and this leads us to the inevitable comparison with McLaren, which seems to have found a much more effective way out of the hole. It's impossible to talk about Mercedes' recovery without mentioning McLaren's impressive turnaround. And the most interesting part? They're using the same Mercedes engine. So, how did they manage to do so well while Mercedes is still trying to find its way? McLaren, which not long ago was a midfield team, is now a constant presence on the podium and has even won a few races. The key to their success was a series of updates and technical adjustments that completely transformed the car's performance. While Mercedes is still dealing with stability and downforce issues, McLaren managed to find a much more effective balance between the car's various elements. Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, even acknowledged that McLaren's recovery is a fantastic story. He highlighted that their success shows how much a good technical direction can make a difference. McLaren focused on deeply understanding the new regulations and adapted their car to make the most of the opportunities presented by these rules. But why couldn't Mercedes follow the same path? The answer isn't simple. It involves a combination of technical decisions, interpretations of the regulations, and maybe even a bit of luck. The important thing is that, while McLaren is already reaping the rewards of their changes, Mercedes is still searching for a definitive solution. So, the question remains, can Mercedes draw inspiration from McLaren and find their way back to the top? Let's now talk about one of the main problems Mercedes is facing: cornering performance. This is a critical point that has greatly affected the overall performance of the car. Mercedes managed to improve stability in fast corners, but this created a new problem: difficulties in slow corners. The car tends to understeer, meaning it doesn't turn enough in tighter corners. For a driver like Lewis Hamilton, who is a master at braking late and still making the turn perfectly, this is a big problem. He even commented that the slower the car goes, the less it wants to turn. This understeer problem in slow corners is particularly frustrating because Mercedes needs to find a balance. If they adjust the car to improve performance in slow corners, they end up losing performance in fast corners, where the car is stronger. And here comes Toto Wolff's metaphor. He compares the situation to using a duvet that doesn't cover the whole body. You adjust one side, but something always remains uncovered. And that's exactly what Mercedes is facing. They need to find a way to cover all aspects of the car's performance without sacrificing one for the other. The team is working hard to connect fast and slow corner performance, and they believe that noticeable progress can be made by the summer break. But for now, this cornering issue remains a major challenge. Now let's talk about Mercedes' progress in absolute and relative terms. Seems confusing? Let's break it down. In absolute terms, Mercedes has made progress. Comparing the performance of the current car with last year's, they are faster on most circuits. In the 6 circuits visited so far in 2024, Mercedes has been faster on 5 of them compared to last year. This shows that, indeed, there has been an evolution in the car. But when we look at relative progress, that is, how Mercedes is performing compared to other teams, the story is a bit different. At the end of last season, Mercedes was, on average, 0.5% off the leader's pace. This year, that gap has increased to 0.7%. This means that, although the car is faster than before, Mercedes is a bit further from the top than it was at the end of last year. This relative progress is important because, ultimately, what matters is how you stand in relation to your competitors. Mercedes may have improved, but the other teams have also improved, and some have improved even more. That's why the team is still in 4th position in the Constructors' Championship, behind Red Bull, Ferrari, and McLaren. But don't be disheartened, Mercedes fans. Progress is happening, and it's clear that the team is working hard to get back to the top. And this is where the long-term strategy comes in. How is Mercedes preparing for the changes coming up? Now let's talk about Mercedes' long-term strategy and how they are preparing for the new regulations coming in 2026. If there's one thing Mercedes has learned in recent years, it's that you can't keep changing direction with every new problem that comes up. The team needs a consistent and well-planned approach. Mercedes is focused on continuous and steady development, rather than seeking magical solutions or sudden major transformations. Toto Wolff called this avoiding zigzagging, that is, stopping changing course all the time. This has caused many ups and downs in the past, but now they believe they are on the right track. The work Mercedes is doing now is crucial to ensuring they are ready for the new engine and chassis regulations in 2026. Even though aerodynamic testing of the 2026 cars isn't allowed until next January, teams are already investing heavily in research and development, and Mercedes is no exception. The good part is that the knowledge the team is accumulating now will be directly applicable to the 2026 cars. Rumors in the paddock say that Mercedes is ahead in terms of power unit development for 2026. Even with Red Bull trying to poach talented engineers from Mercedes, Toto Wolff is confident in the Brixworth team's ability to produce a competitive engine. So, what really matters is that Mercedes now accepts that they are playing a long-term game. It's no longer about sudden big changes, but about consistent and sustainable development. The next 12 months will be crucial for Mercedes, and the upgrades they introduce in the upcoming races will show if they are really on the right path. And then, will Mercedes manage to get back to the top by 2026? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. They are working hard for it. So that's it, folks. Mercedes, a team that dominated Formula One for almost a decade, is now in a rebuilding phase. Since the regulation changes in 2022, the team has struggled to adapt and solve the problems that have arisen. Despite abandoning the zero side pods and making several other technical changes, they still face significant challenges, especially in terms of stability in slow corners. The comparison with McLaren shows that, even with the same engine, different technical decisions and strategies can lead to very different results. While McLaren has managed an impressive recovery, Mercedes is still trying to find the right balance. But not all is lost. The team has made absolute progress and is working on a long-term strategy to be ready for the new 2026 regulations. With a more consistent approach focused on continuous development, Mercedes hopes to get back to the top soon. We'll keep following and analyzing every detail of this journey. So, what do you think? Will Mercedes be able to turn things around? Leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates. See you next time.